BBC News with Sue Montgomery. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has described the killing of the Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah as an historic turning point. He said Israel had settled the score with a man responsible for the murder of countless Israelis and would continue striking its enemies. He said the elimination of the Hezbollah leader was a necessary condition for achieving Israel's war goals. Mr. Netanyahu was speaking on Israeli television.
Citizens of Israel, we have huge achievements, but the work is not done yet. In the next few days, we will be facing significant challenges, and we will manage these challenges together. Nasrallah likened us to a cobweb, but instead of cobwebs, we found out we are made of steel, a strong and united people, determined to secure our existence and our future. And not only Hezbollah found this out, the entire Middle East found this out.
President Biden has said it is time for a ceasefire between Israeli forces and the Hezbollah group in Lebanon. He was responding to reporters' questions about whether an Israeli ground incursion into Lebanon was inevitable. Earlier, Mr. Biden described the killing of Hassan Nasrallah by Israel as a measure of justice for his victims, including Americans as well as Israelis and Lebanese civilians. Chantal Hartel has more.
President Biden, he has reiterated that the US supports Israel's right to defend itself against Iranian-backed groups. He said that Hassan Nasrallah was responsible for killing hundreds of Americans during what he called a 4-decade reign of terror. There's also been comment from Kamala Harris, the vice president. She called Nasrallah a terrorist with American blood on his hands. President Biden also said the US would continue to work to de-escalate the conflicts in both Gaza and Lebanon through diplomacy.
Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei has declared 5 days of public mourning for Hassan Nasrallah. He said his death would not go unavenged. Saudi Arabia has carried out its highest number of executions in more than 3 decades after it put 3 people to death on Saturday, taking the 2024 figure to 198. Charles Anyagolu reports.
The record number of executions in Saudi Arabia come amid a sharp increase in death sentences carried out against drug offenders, with 53 so far this year, rising from just 2 in 2023. It's drawn strident condemnation from the United Nations. The human rights group Amnesty International has also accused the Saudi authorities of weaponizing the death penalty to silence political dissent.
World News from the BBC. Police in northern Mexico have clashed with armed men who blocked a major road to demand money from drivers. Witnesses say the criminal group set several trucks on fire as the police approached, causing panic among dozens of people stuck in traffic. Local media say at least 3 bodies were found once the fire was brought under control. More than 60 people have died in Nepal and dozens of others are missing after torrential rain triggered widespread flooding and landslides. Most of the deaths took place in the Kathmandu Valley, where the swollen Bagmati River flooded over 200 homes. A British MP has resigned from the governing Labour Party and accused the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, of hypocrisy. It follows criticism of the Prime Minister after it emerged he had accepted over $100,000 in gifts and hospitality. At the same time, Labour has cut an annual winter heating payment to some 10 million pensioners. Here's our political correspondent, Damien Grammaticus.
Miss Duffield is the first MP to quit Labour since Sir Keir Starmer entered Downing Street. Her resignation letter is publicly cutting about him, his leadership, his policies and his behaviour. While Sir Keir says he will make tough decisions and the country is all in this together, she says cutting the winter fuel allowance hurts the poorest and most vulnerable. And commenting on the gifts Sir Keir accepted, she writes, "The sleaze, nepotism and apparent avarice are off the scale."
A SpaceX rocket has lifted off from Cape Canaveral, Florida, to dock with the International Space Station. There are 2 crew aboard, half the usual number, because the spare seats are needed to bring back 2 astronauts stranded on the station since June. The plan is to bring the pair back home in February. BBC News.